Welcome to the Mountain Podcast Special Edition Series, my 2024 NFL season predictions. Part 1 is going to be my standings predictions, as well as how I think the playoffs are going to play out, and I'll give out my NFL award picks as well. Part 2 is going to be my superlatives, best rookies, most improved, most disappointing, make or break, comeback, bounce back, Ewing theory, and a bold prediction for every team. And Part 3 is going to be best futures. So we'll kick it off for Part 1. The standings. All right, so we will start in the AFC East. I have winning this division with the record of 11-6, the New York Football Jets. This was a hard decision to make. This was the toughest division to pick, but the Jets are the healthiest right now, and they get Aaron Rodgers coming back off of the injury, the Achilles, and I think he's going to be motivated. He has two really elite offensive weapons in Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. A very good offensive line, a defense that I think is excellent, led by Sauce Gardner, and the pass rush that they have with the Williams brothers and Quinnen and Quincy. So this team's going to be loaded and ready to go. In second place, I have the record of 10-7, the Buffalo Bills. And I also have the Bills as the first wild card. I just can't pick Josh Allen to miss the playoffs. I just can't. He's too good to miss the playoffs. The offense is worse without Stephon Diggs, of course. And on defense, they lose Matt Milano for most of the season. But I think that Allen's too good. And I think they do have the talent on both sides of the ball to overcome the Milano loss and to help them get to the postseason and win double-digit games yet again. I do still think there's a chance to win this division, but I would have felt better if Matt Milano was there. If Matt Milano didn't get hurt, I would have picked the Bills to win the division, but he's hurt, so I picked the Jets. That's what it came down to for me, I have to be honest. The three in this division, so third place with the record of 9-8, I have the Miami Dolphins. This Dolphins team, still pretty good on paper. I think they're worse, obviously. They have some key losses on both sides of the ball. Are you going to get a healthy Tua season again? Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. They got rid of some key guys such as Xavier Howard, who... is he a free agent? Yes. Xavier Howard's going to get signed by somebody. Who knows? Maybe the Dolphins will bring him back. And ironically, I think the Bills would be a good fit for him. But they lost him. They signed Shaq Barrett and cut him. So, Miami's in a little bit of flux in a tough conference. But I still think they're going to be a solid football team. And at the Sellers division with a record of 4-13, the New England Patriots. I think this is the worst team in the league, up and down, especially after they traded Matt Judon. I think there's going to be other guys that they could potentially trade this season. The question is, when will Drake May finally start? It looks like it's going to be Jacoby Brissett in week 1. And I think they should have started Drake May, but I understand why they didn't. Their offensive line stinks. They have no receivers. They have Hunter Henry at tight end. And then Ramondre Stevenson, is he a real RB1? That's a question I have for the Pats. They still have some decent players on defense, but some of those guys could be traded. You never know. Christian Gonzalez is coming back from an injury, so it's going to be interesting with New England in year 1 under Gerard Mayo and without Bill there, obviously. The AFC North, in first place, I have the record of 11-2. The Cincinnati Bengals. This is, to me, the best candidate to be worst to first this season. Joe Burrow back from the injury, but there's rumors about his wrist not being 100%, but I think that's why they're being cautious with him in the preseason, and they're just hiding it from other teams. I've seen teams hide injuries or pretend that a guy isn't healthy before. I feel like the Bengals might be doing this with Burrow. Looks like Jamar Chase will be back week 1, hopefully. T. Higgins. They downgraded running back from Joe Mixon to Zach Moss, but I think there's a chance that they upgrade that spot at the trade deadline. Maybe one of these veteran backs could become available for Cincinnati to acquire. I have a couple names in mind for them, which we'll get to bold predictions. Their defense is still really good, even though they lost TJ Reader. So they're an interesting team, of course, and I'm confident in this team, especially the quarterback if he's healthy. In second place, I have the record of 10-7 in this division. The Baltimore Ravens, I have them as the second wild card in the AFC. I don't know if Lamar Jackson's going to have as good as the season as he did last season. I feel like that's a player that isn't healthy all the time. They obviously upgraded running back Derrick Henry. Zay Flowers is looking like a WR1 for them. Will Mark Andrews be healthy the whole season? Same question goes for Ronnie Stanley on the offensive line. Defense is still really good, especially the pass rush. They have some guys I like in their secondary as well. And then, of course, Justin Tucker is the best kicker in the game. In third in the division, I have the record of 9-8, the Pittsburgh Steelers. This Steelers team's interesting. I have them ahead of Cleveland because of their defense. And solely because of their defense and because of their coach. Mike Tomlin gets the best out of his teams each and every year. And this was a Mike Tomlin out of respect pick. Because I feel like everybody and their mother is out on Pittsburgh after a bad preseason. But we've seen teams struggle in the preseason. And they exceed expectations in regular season. And I could see that happening with Pittsburgh, who, in my opinion, purposely wasn't trying in the preseason. That's why you never overreact to the preseason. And I think too many people did. Quarterback, will Russell Wilson be better than Kenny Pickett? That's an interesting question. He was better than Kenny Pickett last season, but Denver benched him for no freaking reason, only to get a high draft pick. And to me, Denver's issues was less about Wilson and more about their defense, because they gave up 70 points in Miami. And meanwhile, Russell Wilson gets benched after that. Oh, not right after that, but like a month or two after that. But Denver's defense was why they were bad last season. So that's the case for Wilson being an upgrade over Pickett. But I think they should have started Justin Fields. He's a better quarterback than Russell Wilson at this point. But that said, their offense I don't think is going to be that good. And there's some comparisons to last year's Browns with them. I think both those quarterbacks are arguably better than Joe Flacco, especially Fields. And like I said, TJ Watt is, if not the best pass rusher, one of the best pass rushers in the league. And Minka Fitzpatrick's still there in their secondary. And in the cellar of the AFC North, 8-9 record, the Cleveland Browns. I just don't think they're going to have the same juice and magic as last season. I'm not a big Stefanski fan. I know he's two-time coach of the year. He got a lot out of Joe Flacco. And he got a lot out of Baker as well, obviously, that 1 year. But it's the Browns. And Deshaun Watson, are we sure he's still a franchise quarterback? Nick Chubb is still hurt. Their offensive line isn't healthy to start the season. They could very well lose to the Cowboys in their first game. And I'm just not high on this team. And I think they overachieved last year, so I have them in the cellar, but I won't be shocked if they finish anywhere. Even I won't be shocked if they won the division. But yeah, I just have a bad feeling about Watson. And I think there's a chance that defense regresses. All right, the AFC South. In first place, the record of 12-5, the Houston Texans. I love this Texans team. I think this team has the best future in the NFL. C.J. Stroud is the best second-year quarterback we've seen coming into a season in a very long time. The answer to that probably would have been Joe Burrow if Joe Burrow didn't tear his Achilles. He was better than Trevor Lawrence in Lawrence's rookie year, let's be honest. Trevor Lawrence wasn't good at all in his rookie season. And you could argue C.J. Stroud's season last year is better than any season Trevor Lawrence has had. And they upgraded everywhere. Running back at Joe Mixon. They got another receiver in Stephon Diggs. Dalton Schultz is a good tight end that's in their second year with them. The offensive line should be better with some guys being healthy. And I know the left tackle, Laramie Tunsil, when he's healthy, he's one of the best in the league. The pass rush got better with Deion Hunter. Their secondary's good. So they're good all around. And D'Amico Ryans is a top 5 coach already. Second in the division with the record of 10-7 overall, and I have them as the last wild card in the AFC. The Colts of Indianapolis. Yes, the Indianapolis Colts. I think this is your AFC surprise team this season. I feel like if Anthony Richardson was healthy, maybe they make the playoffs. And that's not to say that Gardner Minshew was bad. He was actually pretty solid for them, but I think that was more about their roster and less about him. And I kind of feel the same way. I feel like Richardson's better than him, but this is a bet not necessarily on Richardson, but it's also on their roster. It's on Jonathan Taylor. It's on the receivers getting better. They have a great offensive line. I mean, their defense, I like their pass rush, but their secondary, I'm not the biggest fan of, but they played the Titans twice, so, and who knows with that offense, so, yeah, I like this Colts team. That's the bottom line. I like the roster. Jonathan Taylor's a beast, and Shane Steichen's a really good coach. In third place in the division, I have the record of 9-8, the Jacksonville Jaguars. So this is the third 9-8 team I have that's not in the playoffs. I think the AFC is that good this season. This Jacksonville team's really good. But I don't have them in the postseason. This is probably the best team not in the playoffs. You could argue Miami in the AFC, but Trevor Lawrence is healthier. They lose Calvin Ridley, and that, to me, is the game changer there. Because everybody loves Brian Thomas, and people think he's the next Justin Jefferson. Let's see it first. Come on. And I like Brian Thomas, but he's not JJ. He's just not. Or they call him Jay Jetta in Minnesota. And then Travis Etienne, you have Evan Ingram coming off a good season. Decent O-line. And their defense is not terrible. Josh Allen's really good. Campbell's really good in that secondary, so I could see Jacksonville making the playoffs. That wouldn't surprise me. I also wouldn't shock me if they won their division. And the Southernest Division, 6-11 record, the Tennessee Titans. This Titans team's not that good. I think they're better than a lot of these bad teams that we're going to get into, especially in the NFC. And a couple in the next division we're going to talk about. They lose Vrabel, obviously. They let him go for reasons unclear. They hire Brian Callahan from Cincinnati, who was Zach Taylor's offensive coordinator. Will Levis here too. How's he going to look? They add Calvin Ridley to that offense. They add L'Jarius Sneed to their defense. They trade for Ernest Jones. So they made some additions. They're trying to be decent. I don't think they're trying to tank. They're trying to figure out whether Will Levis is good. That was the reason why they acquired Ridley. So they're like a wait-and-see kind of team for me. And I think there's a chance that this team's better than expected. And even better than the 6-11 that I predicted. All right, the AFC West in first place with a record of 11-6, the Kansas City Chiefs. Not as high as a win total that you would expect from a team that's amazing in the Chiefs. But I just think their division, and the division might be a little bit better than you think, especially with the team I'm going to talk about next. But their conference is better, and their schedule is harder this season. But, of course, Patty Mahomes is still there. Travis Kelce's still there. You're going to be seeing Taylor Swift at all their games probably, now that her tour is just about done, you would think. Say Pacheco, good running back. They have a good line. Defense, they lose L'Jarius Sneed, which isn't great. Chris Jones is still there. And they have a couple guys. Nick Bolden, I believe, still there. So, and then, of course, Bucker, the kicker. So they have their team back intact, and they're going for a three-peat. And I think the Chiefs are going to try, and then they got better. They added Hollywood Brown. And they added Xavier Worthy. to that offense. So you would think they're going to be better offensively. And they know their offense wasn't that good last year. And they won the Super Bowl because of their defense and Mahomes being clutch. All right, the 2 seed. Or not the 2 seed, but second in this division. 9-8 overall, the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm higher on the Chargers than others. I picked them 9-8 because of the coach. Jim Harbaugh is a massive upgrade over Brandon Staley. You can't ask for a bigger upgrade than that. Maybe from like a quarterback standpoint, Kirk Cousins over Desmond Renner and Taylor Heineke in Atlanta. But from a coach standpoint, you can't ask for a better upgrade than Jim Harbaugh over Brandon Staley, who is an atrocity. We'll see about Justin Herbert. It looks like he's healthy after dealing with that injury in the preseason. They get the Baltimore guys at running backs. I have questions for them at receiver. They drafted Lad McConkey out of Georgia. Josh Palmer, is he a WR1? Quentin Johnston didn't even make their top 3, so maybe they're out on him after year 1. And their defense has a lot of big names on it. Joey Bosa, Derwin James, Khalil Mack. Third in the division, have the record of 5-12, the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm out on this Raiders team. Antonio Pierce, cute story, but reality's going to set in. That roster stinks, and they're still paying for the John Gruden drafts. They don't have a franchise quarterback. It's going to be Gardner Minshew and then Aiden O'Connell backing him up. They lose Josh Jacobs, which is humongous. They don't have a real WR1 unless if Devontae Adams is there the whole season, but I'm not convinced that he's going to be there the whole season. I think there's a chance he's traded. The 2 tight ends I like, though, Bowers and Michael Mayer. Offensive line stinks outside of Colton Miller, and then defensively, they're only blue chippers, Max Crosby. And then in the cellar at 5-12, the Denver Broncos. Everyone says that the Chargers are a project. To me, the real project in this division is the Broncos, and Sean Payton knows it. He must really like Bo Nix, though, and I think Bo Nix is going to be solid. I do. Especially with the coach like Sean Payton. But my issue isn't Sean Payton or even Bo Nix. It's their defense. Their defense sucks. Justin Simmons is gone. And all those veterans that they used to have are gone. And they're just not good on that side of the ball. That's why I don't think they're going to be as surprisingly decent as other people think. All right, the NFC East. In first place in this division, I have the record of 12-5, the Philadelphia Eagles. I like this Eagles team. I think the biggest addition that anybody's made this offseason has been them signing Saquon Barkley. I think he has a chance to be the Christian McCaffrey of this offense, behind a good offensive line finally for him. Jalen Hurts is going to have a good season, of course, too. And they have 2 really good players. And their WR2 could be a WR1 on any team, including 2 in their division. And Devontae Smith. I mean, you could argue him versus Terry McLaurin, but, he'd be the WR1 on the Giants. He'd be on the WR1 on a couple teams, even in the conference, let alone their division rival Giants. And you could even argue he's better than Terry McLaurin on Washington, too. But, and then Dallas Goedert's still there. Defensively, their defense, I think, will be better than it was last year in its second half collapse. I mean, Jalen Carter's going to be better, you would think. You have Jordan Davis. We'll see with James Bradbury's situation. So I do expect the Eagles to be the team to beat in that division, as that division is an every other year division. Dallas won it last year. Philly won it the year before. Dallas won it the year prior to that. So, yeah, there's no repeat winners in the NFCs. That's the bottom line. Number 2 in this division with a record of 9-8, the Dallas Cowboys. I'm not high on this Dallas team at all. The only reason why I have them with a winning record is because they play those 2 crap teams in their division twice, and they are a team that really does good in their home building. Dak Prescott contract year, so you would expect him to be good. CeeDee Lamb got paid. He'll be ready to go. Micah Parsons still needs to get paid on defense. I think this Cowboys team is just very top-heavy, but I don't think they're deep. And they used to be deep, but they're not really deep anymore. They're losing guys because they're penny pinching. They penny pinch for CD. They're going to do it for Micah and for Dak potentially as well. But yeah, this could also be ugly to the point where this could be a blow-it-up team in February, March, and they let Dak walk and they trade some guys and rebuild. Like, this could be... They could be replaced by Washington in a year from now, and then it's going to be them and the Giants being awful in that division in a year from now. That could very well be the case. Or maybe they be projected like where the Vikings are right now by most people, and maybe the Giants will have a rookie quarterback, and people look at them like the Bears this year. So it's going to be interesting with Dallas. I mean, I talk too much long-term for Dallas. But yeah, this year, they're obviously under the microscope, and McCarthy... Saying he's a lame duck is an understatement. Third in the division, I have at 6-11 the Washington Commanders. Washington is interesting because of Jalen Daniels. We'll see. And I think their offense is going to be fun to watch with Jalen Daniels throwing to McLaurin, and you have Brian Robinson at the backfield. They're relying on Zach Ertz to be their starting tight end, but he hasn't been good in a while, probably since his Philly days. And that's why they picked Goddard over him pretty much. So he might be washed. But to me, the big issue with Washington is their defense. And that's why I have them with the record. They're going to consider 6-11 a disappointment, Washington. But maybe if you didn't trade Montez Sweat and Chase Young, maybe I would have had them at like 8-9, 9-8 with Dallas. But no, they had to trade those guys, and they did not address that. Sorry. And at the bottom of the division, I've tied with the Commanders at 6-11, the New York Football Giants. The two bad teams in the AFC West I have with the same record, and same with the NFC East, because I couldn't decide who to pick where. And sometimes you have teams tie for first or tie for last in the division. So I did that with both the AFC West with the Broncos and the Raiders, and here in the NFC East with the Commanders and the Giants. So the Giants, my favorite team, obviously. They are probably the most half-pregnant team in the league. It's either them or the Bears. And you could even argue Minnesota. You could make it even a case for Tennessee. You could even argue for Denver. You could argue for Pittsburgh even. I mean, you could have even argued New England at one point, but to me it's the Giants. Daniel Jones was not good last year before he tore his ACL. Now he's coming back, and he looked awful in that preseason game against the Texans, and everybody freaked out. Saquon Barkley's gone. That's a big loss for their offense. And saying that is an understatement. There's two big losses in the offseason. Of course, it's him and another NFC team with a player that we're going to get to later. A defensive player. I think you know who I'm talking about. And then they had Malik Neighbors in the draft. I think he'll be fun and exciting. Their defense, they can rush the passer. They have Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence. They can rush the passer. Their secondary is going to be an issue, though. Teams are going to throw on them. Especially teams with good receivers like Justin Jefferson, who they face in Week 1. But yeah, this team's a mess. They're on Hard Knocks, and it was revealed that they were willing to trade out for Drake May, which I think they should have done. And I personally think the Brian Burns trade's really bad for the Giants. I think that they're going to lose that trade because that second-round pick they gave to Carolina was a good pick, and they could have addressed another need there. Or they could have taken a quarterback at 6. Maybe they could have done that and then taken a wide receiver, maybe Leggett or somebody like that. Or maybe they could have traded back into the first round to get somebody. So there's an alternate universe where they don't do the Burns trade, which I thought the Burns trade was weird, and I thought that the other New York team should have traded for him instead of the Giants. But that said, we'll see about the Giants. A lot of pressure on the coach. But that's only because Bill Belichick's available. But to me, Brian Daboll's hot seat is dependent on what Bill Belichick wants to do. And if Bill decides to go to Philly or Dallas, then I think Daboll will be safe. Well, it's also Mike Vrabel, too, but I like Mike Vrabel, but you can make a case he was a little bit overrated, and that collapse by the Titans at the end of last season can't be overlooked. I feel like too many people overlooked that, but you can make a case Vrabel was a little overrated. But I like Vrabel, and would he be an upgrade over Daboll? Yes, but not a big upgrade. But yeah, I like Daboll, and that's the reason why I have the Giants. I mean, I have them under their win total of 6.5, but barely under because I think that Daboll gets a lot out of that team. And that team didn't quit on him last year after Jones got hurt. So yeah, a little bit of Giants talk because I know a lot of you want to hear my takes on the Giants. So yeah, I have them tied for last in the division with the Commanders. All right, the NFC North. First place, I have the record of 12-5, the Detroit Lions. I like this Detroit team a lot. They're the team to beat in their division. So many people picked them to go to the Super Bowl, and I think they have the roster to do it. But I think things need to go right for Detroit to make it. I think there's one or two more teams that are more talented than Detroit in the division. I like Jared Goff on this team in particular, playing inside. I love Gibbs, the running back. The receivers are good. Laporta's awesome at tight end. They have a good offensive line. Their pass rush is better with the addition of DJ Reader. And their secondary, they lose C.J. Gardner-Johnson, but he barely played for them last year. So their secondary, I think, is probably the weakest part of their team. But they can upgrade that at the trade deadline. Second, 10-7 overall, 6th seed in the NFC playoffs, the Green Bay Packers. So that's the second wild card. I like this Green Bay team a lot. Jordan Love, second full season. I think he's the real deal, as he showed later in the year and especially in the postseason. I wasn't a big Jordan Love fan, but he really grew on me at the end of the season. So Josh Jacobs, Aaron Jones, to me is a wash. Their offensive line's okay. They don't have a real WR1. That's my big issue with Green Bay, but I think that they have 1.5s. Like Christian Watson's a 1.5. Jalen Reed showed that he could be a 1.5. But I like their tight end, Luke Musgrave. Defensively, they have a lot of talent. They add Xavier McKinney. So they're going to be a good team. I'm high on them. All right, third in the division with a record of 9-8. The last wild card in the AFC, or 7 seed. My surprise team of the NFC. The Minnesota Vikings. Yes. This is my surprise of the NFC. The Colts are my surprise of the AFC. I always like to find one surprise team in each conference. And I think it's going to be Minnesota. Yes, I get it. No J.J. McCarthy, which is a big loss for Minnesota. I probably would have had them at 10-7 if it was McCarthy instead of Sam Darnold. But there's always that one team that makes the playoffs every year in spite of their quarterback. Last season it was the Bucs. 2 seasons ago it was the Giants with Danny Jones. Obviously the Bucs with Baker. It was Minnesota with Case Keenum. And in the same year with the Jaguars with Blake Bortles. So yeah, we've seen the Vikings make the playoffs with weaker quarterbacks in the past. And the case for Sam Darnold to be okay is Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, good offensive line, good running game. I think that can get you there. That can get you to 9 wins in a week conference. The division's the best in the conference, of course, in my opinion, the NFC North. But I think it's doable, and plus they have a really good home field advantage, and I feel like the Vikings were unlucky last year, and they have a really good coach in Kevin O'Connell. So, and we didn't even talk about their defense, which they lose Danielle Hunter, big loss, of course, but Jonathan Grenard's not that huge. I mean, it's a drop-off, but it's not the biggest drop-off on planet Earth. I mean, I'll put it this way. Kirk Cousins to Sam Darnold is a bigger drop-off than Danielle Hunter to Jonathan Grenard. Well, that says a lot about how good Grenard was last year, but at the same time, like I said, Minnesota has the talent offensively to overcome Sam Darnold. And Harrison Smith's still in their secondary. They have some other guys in their secondary that they like. So I still like Minnesota as my surprise playoff team. I'm going to double down what I predicted on Doug Saravo's show about a month ago and say the Minnesota Vikings get to the postseason. And then in the Sardis division, I have the record of 7-10, the Chicago Bears. I think the Bears are going to disappoint. I think 7-10 would be considered a disaster for the Bears, considering how high expectations are there in Chicago with Caleb Williams. But I just think the expectations are too high, especially with a team with a rookie quarterback expected to make the playoffs and win 9-10 games right away. No thanks. I always try to stay away from those teams. And plus, Matt Eberflus is easily the worst coach in this division, and I think he's going to be up there for first coach fired. Listen, I like Caleb Williams. I think that has a chance to be a really good pro, but he needs to prove it to me on this level against steep competition. In a whole season, of course. But yeah, they did a good job. I'm not going to lie. The Bears did do a good job building their roster. They have really good receivers, some of the best receivers, best receiving corps in the league. DeAndre Swift at running back, decent offensive line, a good tight end. Their defense is solid. Montez Sweat signed an extension there. Jalen Johnson in their secondary. Good special teams too, but I think Eberflus can hold them back. I think this is the Chargers potentially. Like, in my opinion, Eberflus could be the Brandon Staley of the Bears. And I think the Bears made a mistake in not going out and hiring Jim Harbaugh. Because if Jim Harbaugh was the coach of the Chicago Bears, I would have picked them to make the playoffs. But he's not. But the reason why I didn't pick the Chargers to make the playoffs in the AFC is because the AFC is loaded. And it's not the Chargers' fault that the AFC is loaded. But I do have the Chargers with the winning record, of course. But I think the Bears should have hired Jim Harbaugh. And I think they finished 7-10 in the bottom of this division. NFC North. In first place, I have the record of 9-8, the Atlanta Falcons. They win this division by default because they signed Kirk Cousins. That's what it comes down to for me. Good running game with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. Really good receivers with Drake London leading the way. Will Kyle Pitts finally come through with a big quarterback upgrade? They have a decent offensive line. They made some defensive upgrades with Matt Judon and Justin Simmons. And I don't know if they'll pay off right away, but they'll definitely pay off by the so yeah, I do think that this is a solid team that has all the makings being the 4th seed in the NFC. So second in division with the record of 7-10, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This Bucs team is going to regress. They remind me of the Giants from last season. Because Baker just got paid, just like Daniel Jones had gotten paid at this, 18 months ago. Now it's one of the worst, if not the worst, contract in the league. And now Baker Mayfield's kind of in that same boat. And he loses his offensive coordinator and Canales, as he's now the head coach of the Panthers. But we'll see about Baker. The question is he Daniel Jones from last year, or is he Geno Smith you better be Geno Smith if they're going to be good. But then again, Seattle didn't make the playoffs last year, but that was because of their defense and less because of Geno Smith, obviously. Although Geno did regress last year, but that was more on the defense, in my opinion, and Pete Carroll. But still have Godwin and Evans. Good running game with White, and then the rookie from Oregon. And then you have the offensive line, which is solid, led by Tristan Wirfs. Their defense, to me, isn't going to be as good either. So that's why they kind of feel like the Seahawks from last year rather than the Giants. Although you could argue they're more like the Giants, we'll see. And then Todd Bowles could be right back on the hot seat, like how Pete Carroll went right back on the hot seat. So they're kind of reminding me of the Seahawks from last year, too, in a way. And then, but yeah, they lose Shaq Barrett. Levante David's still there. They lose Carlton Davis to the Lions. There's just a big loss in their secondary. They're just relying on a lot of younger guys to come through on their defense. Third in the division with a record of 6-11, the New Orleans Saints. This Saints team is not good. Derek Carr is still their quarterback, and their coach is still Dennis Allen, who was an awful coach with the Raiders over a decade ago. Dennis Allen's probably the favorite for first coach fired. They still have some talent on the team. Alvin Kamara is still there. Chris Olave. They have a couple good offensive linemen. Their defense isn't bad. Pete Warner, Demario Davis, Marshawn Lattimore, Cam Jordan. So they have some guys I like on their defense. But Derek Carr in that offense just stinks, and their offensive line isn't as good as it used to be. And obviously Dennis Allen. And then in fourth place in this division with the record of 5-12, the Carolina Panthers. I initially had them at 4-13, but my records added up to 271, 273, so I had to make a change, and I decided to give Carolina one extra win. Will Bryce Young be better? Under the new coach, David Canales. Well, the Panthers are trying to build around Bryce Young. They're doing the right thing. Like, they added Jonathan Brooks at running back to go with Chuba Hubbard. Xavier Legette at receiver to go with Adam Thielen. And they trade for Deontay Johnson. They have the tight end from Notre Dame. Offensive line, Ikem Okongwu, Taylor Moton. Then they signed Robert Hunt from the Dolphins. And their defense still has some good players. Shaq Thompson, J.C. Horn. I know they get rid of Brian Burns, but that could be a Ewing theory potentially. And then they still have Derek Brown in their pass rush as well. All right, the NFC West in first place in the division. I have with the record of 11-6. The San Francisco 49ers. Thought about the Rams for a second, but I stuck with the Niners. I think they're going to be a second-half team this season. Looks like Christian McCaffrey's going to be back for the start of the season. Trent Williams is apparently back, so that's good for them. You have still have Debo. Brandon Ayuk's back, which is good. The offensive line isn't as good as it used to be. We'll see if Trent Williams actually plays in week 1. Their defense could take a step back. They do lose some guys defensively. They did lose Javon Kinlaw to the Jets. Which isn't great, but because of the coach and the quarterback and, of course, the real MVP of the team, Christian McCaffrey, I still think they're going to be a force and they're going to win the division, but it might not be until the last week of the season. Second place, I have the record of 10-7 as your 5 seed in the NFC, the Los Angeles Rams. I still like this Rams team. A lot of people are down on them, but I am not one of those people. And that's because of Sean McVay, who I think is the single best coach in the league, hands down. He exceeded expectations last year. 2 years ago, that was the year from hell, and 3 years ago, they won the Super Bowl. Matt Stafford's healthy. They have two good receivers, and Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Kyron Williams is a good running back. They draft Blake Corum. Tyler Higbee's still there at tight end. Offensive line to me isn't that good, but it's not the worst in the league. Their defense, the other big loss, to me, the second biggest player loss this offseason was Aaron Donald. You could argue he was one and Saquon Barkley too, but to me, Saquon Barkley was a bigger loss than Aaron Donald because the Giants are so limited on talent offensively. I just think that's a bigger loss than Aaron Donald. But to me, Aaron Donald is the second biggest loss any team has had this offseason. You could argue Cousins on Minnesota, but they still have the talent around Cousins. So you could argue Cousins is probably third on that list for Minnesota, but Aaron Donald is such a big loss. But Kobe Turner, who is a Defensive Rookie of the Year candidate, was a good player for them last year. They draft Jared Verse. They do trade Ernest Jones, which I think is a loss, but doesn't change how I feel about the team. And they have some guys I like in their secondary. They signed Trey White. Will he be good? But yeah, the reason why I have the Rams in the postseason, again, is because of the coach and because I like their offense so much. And it's not really because of their defense. In third place in the division, I have the record of 8-9, the Seattle Seahawks. I'm not as high on Seattle as others are. Mike McDonald comes in. I think he's going to do a good job. But I just don't think they have the talent on defense. And I think the Rams are more talented defensively than Seattle. I know Byron Murphy comes in defensively, but I don't love their defense at all. They have some guys in their secondary, Devin Witherspoon, I like. And their offense is going to be good. We'll see if Geno can become similar to the guy he was two seasons ago. But that's my big question for them offensively. Kenneth Walker's a good running back. I think they're going to run the ball a lot. I'm not a fan of their offensive line either, although they signed Lincoln Tomlinson. I love their receivers. They have them and the Bears, to me, have the best receiving corps arguably in the conference. You could make a case for Minnesota. It was Dallas in the conversation, but nope, not anymore. And, of course, Philly. But Seattle does have, in my opinion, and San Francisco's up there too, but best receiving corps in the division, absolutely, I'd pick Seattle. I know in the Rams, obviously, with Puka and Cooper, but to me, they have the best receiving trio, definitely in the division, almost maybe even in the conference as well. And then I like Noah Fant at tight end, so we'll see with Seattle. And then at the bottom division, I have the record with 6-11, the Arizona Cardinals. This Cardinals team is going to be interesting. Somebody has to be bad in this division, so I'm going to say it's Arizona. But it's not going to be because of their offense, though. I like Kyler. I think they made the right decision in keeping him around. He has Marvin Harrison Jr. to throw to, and he's going to be awesome. Their offensive line, I'm not the biggest fan of, and we'll see if James Conner is going to be healthy. And James Conner was awesome for them last year. And then their defense, to me, is why I don't think they're going to surprise anybody and potentially be a playoff team. It's because of their defense. Their defense is not good. But a Baker's still there. They don't have any significant pass rushers, in my opinion. And that's a big problem in today's NFL. So, there you have it for the standings. All right, so the playoffs, wild card round. So we'll start with the AFC in the wild card round. 17 Indianapolis Colts at the 2-seed Cincinnati Bengals. Anthony Richardson against Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow has the experience. Anthony Richardson does not. So I'm going to go with the Bengals. over the Colts. 6 seed Baltimore Ravens at the 3 seed Kansas City Chiefs. So a rematch of the AFC title game last season and of what's going to be week 1 this year. To me, Kansas City's improvements overtakes Baltimore. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs over the Ravens. The Buffalo Bills at the New York Football Jets. So the AFC East matchup in the wild card round. That's a lot of fun. To me, it comes down to who's the better roster. In my opinion, the better roster is the New York Jets. With the Jets really don't have a home field advantage. There's no home field advantage at MetLife Stadium, let's be honest, for either team. But I think they could have it over the Bills. Although Bills Mafia could mob that stadium. But I think Jets over the Chiefs, or Jets over the Bills, because of Rodgers. And I just think the Jets have a better secondary than Buffalo, and I think they can get some stops. So Jets over the Bills. All right, the NFC playoffs. 7 seed Minnesota Vikings at the 2 seed Detroit Lions. So NFC North matchup in the first round. I think in that dome, the Lions are going to be fired up, and I'm going to say this is a potential round 1 blowout, so I'm going to go with the Lions over the Vikings. 6 seed Green Bay Packers at the 3 seed San Francisco 49ers, so a division round rematch in round 1. I think it'll be the same outcome in the same building, so 49ers over the Packers. And I think the 49ers will be healthier at that time. And then 5 seed Los Angeles Rams at the 4 seed Atlanta Falcons. So the Rams on the road again. I think the Rams are a better team than the Falcons, and I think the difference here is that the young Rams pass rush will get the best of Atlanta's offensive line. So I'm going to go with the 5 seed Rams in the NFC over the 4 seed in the NFC, the Atlanta Falcons and Kirk Cousins. As Kirk Cousins always loses in round 1 of the playoffs, it feels like. Except for the year that he beat the Saints in overtime when he was on Minnesota. All right, the division round, the AFC. 4 seed New York Jets at 1 seed Houston Texans. Good matchup, Aaron Rodgers against C.J. Stroud. But talk about a home field advantage. The Texans are going to have one, especially in that spot. That crowd's going to be ruckus and ready to go. They have the experience from last year, so I'm going to go with the Texans over the Jets. All right, AFC 3 seed Kansas City Chiefs at the 2 seed Cincinnati Bengals. So we have the Chiefs at Cincy. AFC title game rematches from 2022 and 21 seasons. I think this is going to be a classic of a game, potentially. But the Bengals with home field, they finally get the best of the Chiefs. And I trust Joe Burrow against the Chiefs more than any other quarterback. So I'm going to go with the Bengals to upset, quote-unquote, the Chiefs in the second round of the postseason. Although Kansas City, that game might be a pick-em or Bengals by 1, but some might call that an upset if the Chiefs were to be favored here. So Patrick Mahomes finally loses before the championship round. All right, the NFC. 5 seed Los Angeles Rams at the 1 seed Philadelphia Eagles. So Matt Stafford against Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. I don't trust Stafford in cold weather. And I trust Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley, so I'm going to go with the Eagles over the Rams. 3 seed San Francisco 49ers at the 2 seed Detroit Lions. NFC title game rematch in the divisional round. I think Detroit would be motivated, and I think they win the rematch here in their home building, so I'm going with the Lions over the 49ers. Championship round, AFC Championship. The Cincinnati Bengals, their 2 seed at the 1 seed Houston Texans. This would be a fun game, potentially a shootout. I think Joe Burrow is really good at winning on the road. If he can win in Arrowhead, he can win in Houston. So I'm going to go with the Bengals over the Texans as the Bengals advancing to the Super Bowl. And your 2 seed Detroit Lions at the 1 seed Philadelphia Eagles. This is where you get nervous if you're Jared Goff and you're outdoors. Philadelphia with that weather advantage. Keep that in mind. I'm going to go with the Eagles over the Lions in what would be a really, really fun game. And the Super Bowl. I have your 2 seed in the AFC, the Cincinnati Bengals, and your 1 seed in the NFC, the Philadelphia Eagles. I think this would be a really fun game. We could have had the Super Bowl in the 2022 season. It was close. We could have had it. But obviously, the Eagles blew out the Niners. And then the Chiefs at the end of the game won it. Harrison Butker hit that field goal. I mean, Eagles-Bengals could have conceivably been the Super Bowl 2 seasons ago, but it wasn't. So you have Joe Burrow and that whole group, that offensive line, and a defense led by a great coordinator in who I think is one of the best assistant coaches in Lou Anarumo. And then you have the Eagles with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley and Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert. A great offensive line without Jason Kelce. I still think they have a good offensive line. And a decent pass rush led by the 2 Georgia players. And then you have that secondary, which is going to be healthy by then, led by Darius Slay. I think Philly has the best roster from top to bottom in the entire league. And Jalen Hurts was an MVP candidate 2 years ago. I think they're going to overcome all the drama that was reported. They hired 2 good assistant coaches in Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio, which would be big helps for Nick Sirianni. And I think that the Philadelphia Eagles will win their first Super Bowl since 2018. And it would be their second Super Bowl in a 7-year span. So I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles over the Cincinnati Bengals for my Super Bowl pick. All right, last thing for part 1, the NFL awards. All right, MVP, I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts. I have them winning the 1 seed in the NFC, and Jalen Hurts gets to play the Giants and the Commanders 4 times. So I think that he could pat his stats against those teams. And he's also in a bad NFC as well, and a lot of primetime games. And like I said, I think that drama's going to calm down. I think Saquon Barkley's going to be his best friend in that offense. Runner-up, I'm going to go with C.J. Stroud. I have the Texans as the 1 seed. I think it's going to be a close race, but I went with Jalen Hurts because I think he'll have the better stats. Offensive player of the year, I'm going to go with Breece Hall, the New York Football Jets. I thought about going with Tyreek Hill. I thought about going with Justin Jefferson. I thought about going with CeeDee Lamb. I thought about going with Christian McCaffrey. I thought about Saquon Barkley. But I decided to go with Breece Hall. And I think he's going to be a monster in the Jets offense, running behind a great offensive line. So I'm going to go with Breece Hall. Runner-up, I have Justin Jefferson. I have him carrying the Vikings to the postseason. And I think that he could be a super-duper dark horse MVP candidate like how Tyreek Hill was last season. Defensive player of the year. Nick Bosa of the San Francisco 49ers. I love Nick Bosa. I almost gave him out for Defensive player of the year at 10-1 as my regular show portfolio pick. And I think he has become underrated in so many ways because of the other great pass rushers in the league, such as Micah Parsons, T.J. Watt, Myles Garrett, etc. So I'm going to go with Nick Bosa. Runner-up, I'm going to go with Sauce Gardner of the New York Football Jets. I love Sauce Gardner. He's the best defensive back in the league right now. And he's going to lead that Jets defense, which I think is the best defense in that division. And maybe even in the conference. Coach Coach of the year, I'm going to go with Kevin O'Connell of the Minnesota Vikings. That's my surprise team in the NFC. Everybody and their mother has them in last place because everybody's drinking the Caleb Williams Chicago Bears Kool-Aid. But Kevin O'Connell, I think, did a decent job last season. I know they had a losing season last year, but I think he did an admirable job. They went 7-10 last year, but they were worse than that. Like, if you watched them, but they won 7 games in spite of Kirk Cousins getting hurt, but that's because of his coaching and not really because of their quarterback play. And I think that his good coaching will get them to the postseason. Runner-up, I'm going to go with Shane Steichen of the Colts. I have them as my surprise in the AFC, so I gave him the runner-up spot. I thought about Mike Tomlin for runner-up. I thought about some other guys. Harbaugh, obviously, but I don't have him in the playoffs. But I think everybody loves Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers, but I decided to go with the Colts and Steichen. I mean, some may argue Doug Peterson if they win that division, but I'm going to go with Shane Steichen as my runner-up. Offensive rookie of the year, I'm going with Marvin Harrison Jr. of the Cardinals. I just think he's going to put up Odell Beckham-like numbers. When Odell was at the Giants in his first season, he's have all these highlight plays. Runner-up, I have Caleb Williams, but I just think Harrison's going to prove to be the next marquee wide receiver, like in the same class as Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, and Jamar Chase. And like I said, runner-up, Caleb. I thought about Jalen Daniels for runner-up. I thought about Drake May even. My runner-up would have been J.J. McCarthy, or he would have been my pick for rookie of the year if he didn't get hurt. And then Harrison would have been runner-up. I thought about Malik Neighbors of the Giants. I thought about Brian Thomas of the Jaguars. I didn't even think about Rome Odunze only because of Caleb, but that's not his fault. Defensive Rookie of the Year, I'm going to go Jared Verse of the Rams. I just think that he's going to emerge as another keeper on that Rams young defense. And he won't be the next Aaron Donald, obviously, but I just think that he'll have an instant impact. My runner-up, I'm going to go with Dallas Turner of the Vikings. I like him a lot, and he's going to help improve that defense to get them to the playoffs. Comeback Player of the Year, of course, I'm picking Aaron Rodgers. I have them in the playoffs, winning the division. And he has the whole New York narrative and the media behind him. People may say I'm a homer, even though I'm not a Jets fan, obviously, but people are going to say I give favoritism towards players that I cover locally, but I did pick Breece Hall as Offensive Player of the Year. I picked Sauce Gardner, Defensive Player of the Year, runner-up. So maybe I'm drinking the Jets Kool-Aid a little bit, but I do like Aaron Rodgers for Comeback Player of the Year. My runner-up's Kirk Cousins, and then Joe Burrow's right there as well. So Kirk Cousins runner-up, and then Joe Burrow third. I just put Cousins/Burrow because they're also coming off of injuries, but Cousins had just as a devastating injuries. Rodgers, Burrow's was obviously a bad injury too, but because of the severity, I have Cousins second over Burrow. So there you have it for my awards, and there you have it for part 1 of my 2024 NFL season prediction show. Like I said, part 2 will be coming up with the superlatives, and then part 3 will be all things betting.